It's rivalry week for Toronto FC, which I guess is something to look forward to after another disastrous pair of games for the team. My name is Mitchell Tierney. This is Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. And this week on the show, we'll chat more major injuries, what the rest of the season could bring for the club, a notable free agent, and plenty more. We'll also look in depth at a Canadian team who's actually having some success. And, of course, Toronto FC's opponent this week, CF Montreal. Tristan D'Amours of MLS will be by in just a bit to talk about the surprise they've been this season. Speaking of writers at MLS, though, Michael Singh, some big news this week, now writing for the MLS mothership. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, man, I guess all of my articles just bashing TFC finally caught some traction, man, and MLS decided to reach out and, good things, man, good things. And I appreciate everyone's support because obviously none of this could happen without, all of you guys and all of the people that chime into the show as well, because I know you guys are, big fans of the work that we do at Waking the Red. So excited to, continue to move on here and go do, hopefully, bigger and better things.
Onward and upward, Mikey. Fantastic.
There we go, man.
Fantastic.
There we go.
It was the Benedict bump. We had Benny on the show last week.
Yep,
we all know the rise he's been on, and all of a sudden Michael's just following the wave. So love to see it. Big week for Jeffrey P. Nesker as well. I mean, he was. I saw him drumming at a Hamilton Forge game. I've seen all kinds of pictures.
We should have got a picture up.
Yeah, there's apparently video footage that I need to find and destroy. So that'll be pretty fantastic.
Not if producer Sophia doesn't get it first, then we'll make sure to put it in the intro or have it in the show somehow.
I'll say this: it was about 47,000 degrees in the shade at Tim Hortons Field, so my brain was desperately trying to stay alive, and keeping time sort of helped, I guess, for a second.
Jeff, you find yourself in hot places more than anyone I know. Like hot situations, whether it's your apartment, whether you're outside, somehow the heat attracts Jeffrey.
I gotta rethink my life choices, guys. I think I need to move up north. Sudbury sounds nice. Maybe Siberia. I hear it's quite temperate in BC. Never gets.
You want to give a little disclaimer as to what else is going on in your apartment today?
Oh yeah. I may have to dip because there's construction going on. They're rebuilding the access ramp to the front of my building, and I woke up this morning to the sound of World War III. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But we're living on borrowed time because it's been about a half an hour noise free. So I imagine their lunch break is probably ending very soon. So
I don't know. Isn't the joke with construction workers that they take like 3-hour lunch breaks?
Never
doing anything. So maybe
fingers
we'll get
crossed
lucky on that.
I mean, the notice in the hallway said that they'll be in and out like a shot. So we'll see. Yeah.
It's all right. Let's keep this conversation going, guys, because the more we talk about this, the less we have to talk about TFC. So, anything else you guys want to get off your chest right now?
Well, honestly, we don't have to start the show with TFC this week. Tristan's here, so we might as well start by talking about a team that's actually having some success in MLS. So let's bring Tristan on. Why don't we and talk some CF Montreal? Now joined by Tristan D'Amours from MLSsoccer.com. Tristan, been a big fan of your work for a long time, so very pleased to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Also, Michael, congratulations on the gig. We're officially colleagues now.
Oh, look at that. I'm honored. Nice. I'm honored, my guy. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm well deserved.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Kind words from everybody, man. I'm feeling all the love today. I like it. Keep this going. We should do this more often.
No, I don't want to. You got 1 week, so that's it. We're gonna be horrible to you next week. So yeah.
Well, Tristan, we'll start with this. I think it's fair to say CF Montreal have been one of the biggest surprises this year in MLS. I guess just to sum it up quickly, what's gone right for this team and to be in a playoff position that they currently are? I don't think many were expecting that.
I think it starts with the coaching situation. They, a lot of people had Montreal in the depths, mainly because the international superstar in Thierry Henry left for personal reasons. I mean, I feel like we could all understand what he was going through. For Wilfried Nancy, and look, guys, I'm not gonna lie, I've been saying this to pretty much everywhere I've been invited to that's not Montreal. So It's not a fresh take, but it's a take that I like to repeat. Wilfried Nancy is the most interesting coach in MLS. He is a very, very, very interesting man. And I think the way he coaches this team fits perfectly with the ethos that is CF Montreal. I think he's a very cerebral man. He's a guy that's waited for a while to get his first shot at being a head coach. And he understands the youth movement. He's been coaching. I mean, like, I think the most beautiful example for me is Mathieu Choignard, who's a breakout star for CF Montreal this year. Homegrown guy, went through so many injuries, including concussion, which he's been dealing with for a full year. Wilfried Nancy started coaching Mathieu Choignard when he was 11 years old. Like, wow. This is the kind of stuff you get with Montreal this year. It's a very young squad, a squad that not a lot of people gave chances to, and they proved that they could, kick it with the best, especially when they were down in Florida. A little less now, but there's a lot of suspensions, a lot of injuries, and I think it's the pendulum is slowly swinging the other way.
Man, I'm glad you mentioned Mathieu Choignard, if I pronounce that correct, because I've been talking about his brother, and I watch him for Forge, and man, special. And Mitch, I think, correctly pointed out last year that his brother is even better than him, and we're seeing that this year. So they got some talent there in the Choignard family. But speaking of new additions there, Tristan, I got to ask you about Canadian international that's been on the rise. Kamal Miller, newer addition for CF Montreal. Just how good has he been for Montreal? How important has he been? Because we see how good he's been for the national team.
Yeah, this dude is he came in he came in off a trade. I mean, one of those Olivier Renard trades, buy low, and he's definitely going to sell high with this guy. And I saw him from afar. I mean, he was playing with OCB, and then he was playing with Orlando City, mainly as a left back. But the second he came up here, he was for sure going to be a center back. And I think playing him on the left side of that back three, or through the three center back line, because it's a point of contention. Is it a back five? Is it a back three? Anyway, but what I think is really cool about Kamal is that he came in, and straight from the get-go, we had this sense, or we were getting words that the guy's 24, but he's a leader. Like, he's coming in and he's being a leader, and it was something that Montreal was looking for with this guy. And in case you don't know, the captaincy situation is a bit of a committee. The guy you're going to see wearing the armband if he's on the pitch is Sam Piet, and then there's Victor Wanyama, but Kamal Miller is on that committee. He's the third kind of co-captain situation. And I think straight from, talking with him on the Zoom calls and whatnot, he seems like he's much younger than 24. Yeah. And I think it just brings this calmness. And I think that was him alongside Rudy Camacho, who's having a tremendous season apart from those 2 red cards or the 2 suspensions.
We love Rudy Camacho. He's our
Rudy Camacho fans here at TFC.
But the guy, if it wasn't for the red cards, I think, I was vouching for him for All-Star. Like, he's having an All-Star season. And Canadian fans, he is about to get citizenship, and he's expressed interest for playing for the Canadian national team. Wow. So I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. He's never played for the French national team. So, but that back three with Struna, with Camacho, with Miller, is a stark difference from the defensive squad that we had back in the day in Montreal. I think it's one of the best defensively, and it's really helped out guys like James Pantemis, who obviously made some mistakes, but if you go young, you're always going to have mistakes. So
yeah. I
Good
mean, you sort of
defense must be nice.
Yes, defense. What's that? You sort of answered my first question, which was essentially praising Wilfred Nancy because we love him over here. He's fabulous. He's the real deal. And you sort of so I'll ask you one of my bonus questions that I just thought about. What's going on with Balou Tabla? I mean, is he, because I
Great
really
question.
rated him at the outset, and then of course he went to Barcelona and kind of festered there for a while on the B team. We saw flashes of him at, what was it, the Gold Cup or World Cup qualifying?
Olympic qualifying.
Olympic qualifying. Right. The failed campaign. And I haven't heard much about him. I mean, what does the future look like for Balou Tabla in your opinion?
It's a great question. Well, the one update I can tell you is that he has long hair now.
No,
Wow.
Update we all
Wow.
needed.
Yeah.
Let's go.
that's a good update. I like that update.
For the
yeah.
fashionistas out there. But it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year after another tough year after another tough year for Balou. And I think everyone just wants him to play. But I don't know if Montreal is necessarily the place that he's going to play. He struggled with injuries, and then I think it was a few last week or the week before, someone asked Wilfred Nancy about Balou, and he said he's not close to being fit, and I think it's sad. It's disappointing for him. I think he wasn't. I don't know if he had the best advice, growing up or growing up in his soccer
football career. Yeah.
I think it's a bit unfortunate, and I'm not sure what necessarily would be the best outcome. I don't know if there's an MLS team out there looking to take a chance on him. I think the fact that he's Canadian and not American is but CPL. I mean, here's the thing with CPL. The guy played for Barcelona.
Yeah.
He was. I mean, it was Barcelona B, but I would like to think that the salary of a player for Barca B is not that bad. Neither is in MLS. Is taking the pay cut of a CPL player something he wants to do? That's a good question. But at the end of the day, how many options do you have?
Exactly.
So I wish him the best. Honestly, I just think he needs to play. And one thing I'll end on for Balou was right before the pandemic. I remember the last or the second to last training session I went to. He was playing wing back, and I thought that was an interesting thing for Balou. To be fair, we haven't really seen him because, as you know, a pandemic happened, and then then he got injured when we were allowed back at training. And I'm not I'm not as much a regular at the training sessions as I used to be.
Tell us about it. Same here.
Yeah. But I thought it was an interesting little experiment, and I don't think we really saw that happening. But the way they're playing wingbacks now in Montreal, I think would have been an interesting thing. I think it would have been good to brush up on his defensive work, but. So I hope for the best. I just hope that he plays.
Let me tell you something, Tristan. Like, Griffin Dorsey right now is finding a way to get in matches for the Houston Dynamo. And if Griffin Dorsey can find a way to get in matches in MLS, I think anything is possible for Balou Tabla. So fingers crossed.
It's interesting you mentioned Houston, because I was thinking of a guy like Tyler Pasher.
Yep.
Who I believe is older than Balou.
I think he is. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think he's 26. I think.
For sure. Yeah. That's a good comparison, and who knows what the future holds, as you say. But we wish Balou the best as well. He is a very highly touted Canadian prospect, so
100%.
Yeah. Hopefully the future is brighter than what it has been.
I've always been high on the guy. I was always high on Anthony Jackson, who also just recently retired for you guys. So
yeah,
I know. I'm sad.
Yeah, I'm
very
sad.
Never got a
unfortunate.
fair shake.
And he was one of those. He was one of those because if there's one thing the Montreal Impact, now CF Montreal, doesn't produce all that much, or for, I'm gonna try and keep it PG, but it doesn't see necessarily as much value as they probably should, is strikers.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of strikers. If you look at what the Montreal Impact Academy produced, quite honestly, I think goalkeeper is definitely the most.
Damn, you guys are tearing it up. Yeah. My goodness, you were so deep at goalkeeper. It's not funny. It's ridiculous.
I was going to build on that.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to build on that just because that's a question I wanted to ask was, we've been talking a lot about Canadian national team players, and that's a situation that I think Canadian national team fans should be watching right now, just because, with Clément Diop being released, now all of a sudden you've got James Pantemis, Sebastian Breza, who's on loan from Bologna, and then I guess Jonathan Sirois just went back to Valor, but you've got quite the crop of young Canadian goalkeepers in there, and they're going to get minutes. What have you made of that youth movement and how it's worked for Montreal so far this season?
I mean, I could add names to the pile, because there's a young kid by the name of Vezina that I think his name is Jordan.
Hey, that's
Vezina. He's a goalkeeper, and his name is Vezina.
Yeah, that's got to be something to watch.
That's done. I don't care about anyone else. That guy's
he's our number one.
Done.
Yep.
He was invited to camp earlier this year. So I think it's beautiful to see. All due respect to Clément Diop, who is the reason the Impact won the Canadian Championship in 2019. I think if it's not for Clément,
we don't talk about that game here.
Oh,
no, we can talk about it. We can talk.
Really?
No, we can talk about that.
I'm a bit surprised to hear. But yeah, I hope he finds something. If not in MLS, somewhere else. But the whole of the goalkeeper core in Montreal right now is Québécois. I think that's just beautiful. That is awesome to see. Pantemis has to improve on his ball playing skills because of the way this team plays. However, once he comes back, he has come back from COVID protocol. He's still number one for me. And then you got Breza, who out of nowhere got a chance to prove himself, which I think is what he's been asking for. He was down in the dumps. I mean, he was never going to play for Bologna. And now he's in a situation where he very much could be the second keeper in Montreal next year. I mean, it's nothing has been signed yet. He's still a Bologna player. But if you ask me, he might just sign a permanent deal. It's not going to cost that much, really. And then you got Sirois, who, best case scenario, he's back at Valor right now, and he's going to play the rest of the season at Valor right now. And today at training, Ryan Yesley, who, if that rings a bell, was drafted by Valor at the CPL draft this year, and was playing Can Champ for Blainville earlier this week, was at camp. So is this a thing where you sign this guy as a third keeper, and then you just for insurance sake, and then Sirois can have the peace of mind in Winnipeg, and he's another Québécois. So I think I like where they're going. I like how they're, you're going to have mistakes. You're playing kids. If you play the kids, you have to assume that there's going to be mistakes. Fine. If you're okay with this, go ahead. And they might. I'm not gonna say they're not gonna lose a playoff spot. At the start of the season, I said if they go above 10th, I'm good. I find that great. And right now they're in a playoff spot. So it's up to them to not blow leads anymore, not leave points on the table, because let me tell you, they've lost points, and they've kept points off. They've left points on the table, and while I don't like looking at the standings right now because I think it's too early, if you lose too many points, and right now they're top of the league when it comes to blowing leads and losing points in positions where you lead, with 17 points off the table, That makes as I've said that to many people, but it makes for a tougher end of the season and a tougher push when you have injuries, you have suspensions, and you have a trolley of players that are going for international duty. So I don't know.
17
Patrick
points
Waugh.
on the table. I think that's more points than we've accumulated in the season by wins.
Yeah.
So
That's
Seriously.
5 wins and 2 draws off the table.
Yeah, we
5
definitely don't
wins.
have 5 wins.
Yeah, I don't even know what 5 wins feels like. So
Oh, come on. You guys won like what 4 years ago?
hey man, we're sad. What are we gonna do? Is it my turn? Yeah, I think it's my turn. So you know, I think I'm going to do this one. I remember, I think my favorite Impact and Impact era troll was you guys calling Michael Bradley Kalu, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Do you have a begrudging TFC troll that we've ever done that you just had to sit back and go, congratulations, guys, that one's pretty fantastic, and credit to you?
Great. That's a great question. I'm not sure. I don't know. The one gripe. Well, there are many. If you don't come from Toronto, there are many gripes that you have with Toronto.
Yeah.
I think the thing I dislike the most, or I guess I like the most, or whatever, is what you call the miracle in Montreal. There was no miracle. The Impact just sucked. Like there was no miracle. There was no miracle. They sucked.
Hey, it doesn't
and
roll
the
off
worst
the tongue. We beat a suck team. Like
the worst thing is they sucked in front of Vancouver,
Mhm.
and that I think is just it's first off, it's incredibly Vancouver. It's incredibly Whitecaps to just like get disappointed when you're not even you're not even playing and you're disappointed. Yeah, that's the one thing. I was like, okay, fair enough. It's a very Toronto thing to call it the miracle in Montreal, but there was no miracle in the miracle.
I mean, alliteration, man. I'm always gonna M plus M. It just rolls off the tongue. You know what I mean? It's so yeah.
But well played. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I mean, we didn't play very well, according to you. We just showed up, and you guys suck so bad. So
it was horrible. It was bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it must have been.
It was great. It was bad.
I remember being incredibly disappointed with this game.
Yeah.
So Tristan, let me sort of wrap this all up, and let's look ahead to Friday's match, MLS rivalry match. Do you have any reservations now about playing Toronto FC? They're bottom of the table. We know what their record is. Is there still something in you guys, or at least do you think in CF Montreal, where they head into this match with, I don't know, some sort of weight on their shoulder, knowing that they're playing TFC? Does TFC still instill any sort of fear into CF Montreal?
I'm going to flip your answer. I've never felt any reservation with Montreal playing Toronto, especially when they were good. Especially when they were good. Because that's when you know that there could be a win, right? I do have it now because Toronto's not good. Toronto's not good, and Montreal has been blowing leads game after game after game.
Wow.
Now, I mean, they won't have Altador. That I think changes a lot. Because Josie knows how to play Montreal. That's you
true.
Could say whatever you want, guys.
Yep, you're right.
Josie knows how to play
That's
Montreal.
a fact.
He comes out for Impact games. Absolutely. Sorry, CF Montreal games.
Well, I mean, they've never played CF Montreal, haven't they?
Have we not ever played? I think
No, we played earlier this season.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
I remember lots of Twitter jokes about, this isn't Impact stats, right? But
here's a game where this could change a lot of things. Toronto's coming in, depleted. They have one of their worst seasons since Toronto was bad. And Montreal, for some reason, the defense hasn't been as good as it once was. Offensively, it's not great because Mason Toy is out for probably the rest of the season.
Oh man.
Ramel probably has like 20 minutes in him before going to Honduras.
Right.
And quite frankly, I don't know who's going to be starting in nets. So this could be a winnable game for Toronto.
You love to hear it, but
We just faced
I don't believe
Atlanta
you.
and we just faced Inter Miami. We thought those were winnable games too.
Yeah,
Tristan.
there are.
Game. You
there
know
are
who
no
else lost
winnable
to Inter
games.
Miami?
Yeah. That was a
Huh?
wild game. That was a hell of a game.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, the comments are saying this is too much positive Montreal talk for 1 week. So,
I'm surprised,
deal
guys.
with it, guys.
Where's the punches? I was expecting more.
Montreal's too good a city, and when you guys are good, it makes for better games.
We don't have any ground to stand on either.
Yeah,
there's just not
too.
much ground to stand on.
There's sports hate and there's real hate, and this is firmly in the sports hate category. So plus it's nice to see just as long as you don't. I don't think you're going to beat us 3-0 in the first round and take us out of the playoffs and with off the back of a Didier Drogba brace. So I'm not too worried, but
Yeah.
There's
There's no Drogba anymore. There's no I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, it's super cliche to think, let's get a goal scorer and it'll solve all our problems. But right now, God, would it be nice to have a Drogba to come, especially with a player like Georgian Mihailovic. Oh my God, you could feed a guy like Drogba like this, and that's the one thing that's missing for this club right now. I mean, Ramel Kyoto. Frankly, I had no idea he was going to be that good last year.
He was pretty fantastic.
And I think we could talk about the things that are not in the sport, but I think the pandemic helped him a lot to just focus on soccer and not about other things that aren't going well in his life. And he found himself. He found himself as a player. I think playing striker. And I think one thing that was missing for this club is tremendously is Ramel being injured, striker, and then Mason Toy being injured. I think is just really bad because Bjorn Janssen, who was supposed to be the guy scoring goals, was this 6'4" giant. And honestly, guys, for a guy that's 6'4", this guy knows how to be invisible. Like it's just, I mean, it's a big game for Bjorn on Friday. It's going to be a big game. So if he manages to score, this could change his season. Again, playing Toronto, playing the rival, could change a lot of things.
Everybody comes out. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tristan. This has been great.
This was a pleasure, Tristan. Anytime you want to come back and gab with us about the rivalry, man, we're happy to have you. So.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Man. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
May the best team win, which is probably them.
What a great guest, eh?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's my colleague, boys. That's my colleague.
Nice.
It's my quarterback. Let's talk about Toronto FC, I guess.
I guess.
Winless in 6, winless in the 6. So far this
season.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, that's bars, Mitch.
Yeah.
I guess I'll start with you, Mike. After 2 losses against teams that are below the playoff line in 1 week, is it over? And if it is, where does the conversation go from here?
So, on the one hand, what does that say?
Season is over. It's a note that I've had for 3 tunnel clubs. Just dribble.
Yeah, Mitch. I mean, I guess so at this point, man. There's so far out of a playoff spot at this point. We have 3 wins in the entire season. And I go back to a comment Bill Manning made when he was firing Chris Armas at the Chris Armas press conference. And it was that it's not in the fact that they're losing games. It's in the fashion that they're losing games now. And I think against Atlanta United, that team looked like they lacked so much urgency. It was like
Mhm.
the fact that they were not playing with their season on the line. Like it's the fashion again, the way that they were losing that match. It was a 1-0 match, and at times I felt it was like 3-0 because TFC looked defeated, they looked frustrated, and there were still like 30 minutes left in the match. And they just brought on some of their best players. So that was Atlanta, and then Inter Miami. I mean, I don't think we really need to dive into exactly what the heck that was. Omar Gonzalez after the
There was a
game.
lot of diving in from the back line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can say that. Omar Gonzalez after the game, it's gotten to the point where like Omar Gonzalez is essentially calling out the rest of his teammates, being like, some of us were not up for that game. We need to take a hard look in the mirror ourselves.
Sure
And then
do.
him saying that he was out there dying for the team, and he was out there dying. Like,
Well, he was
there's
out there
no-
dying. But
Yeah, maybe he's out there dying.
Yeah,
But then there's clearly that separation in the dressing room where some players are now pointing fingers at each other, and I think that's come onto the pitch as well. I think we're seeing that far too often. It's just far too disconnected. And Mitch, I'll go back to a statement that you made kind of way back, a couple episodes back, where you said, and it was bang on. You can make a really good roster, but that doesn't necessarily make you a good team. And I think that's the perfect way to sort of sum up what this Toronto FC team is. And I'll use, not to pick on him, but I'll use Kamal Lawrence as an example. Kamal Lawrence is brought into this team, in April or May, while Chris Armas was still around. We knew the identity that Chris Armas wanted to instill in this Toronto FC team. They wanted to be a more vertical team. They wanted to, play off the counter press. They really wanted to, inject energy and make the games hard to play, and TFC really capitalized quickly. Kamal Lawrence isn't a player that can play in tight areas. He's not good at keeping possession. And now that Javier Perez is in, that's who they're stuck with there at left back. Is someone who likes to play vertical, someone who, this guy, a very good player, 2018 MLS Best 11. Played overseas in Belgium most recently. He's still, 29, 30 years old? Like, he's still should be his prime. But he looks like a player that's just completely disconnected from the rest of the squad. And if you go through, really, TFC's 11, that's really what the narrative is right now. I mean, going back, and again, not to harp on the beginning of the season too much, but thinking back to the beginning of the season, they're trying to play a high line, trying to press, get on people's backs, not give them much space. But then you have someone like Omar Gonzalez who's trying to defend counterattacks. It's just, there's so many disconnects right now on this team. And, everyone's quick to point out, the issue is the fact that we can't score. Well, I mean, there's also a burden of injuries up front that people like Pozuelo, Soteldo, even Osorio at times are working with, right? They're trying to play off Patrick Mullins, who...
Stop it.
I'm sorry, Jeff, but he doesn't have an MLS goal this season. He's a striker. He doesn't have a goal this season. And if your option, I'm not to defend Soteldo too much, but if your option is either laying the ball off to Patrick Mullins or trying to do everything yourself, I mean, more times than not, like at this point, you're going to try and do everything yourself because you're just frustrated. And I think Pozuelo, he's more times than not, he's looking for Soteldo, right? It's because there's a lack of connection overall in this TFC roster, and that's shining through quite evidently. As Thundercat's saying in the chat, they're mentally finished. And that's what it seems like. There's no camaraderie in this team. Exactly. And where do they go from here? Well, Jeff, I mean, it's what you've been screaming for, my guy. It's now let's see what we have moving forward.
We have to. We absolutely have to. We cannot keep harping on the potential of the Jaquil Marshall-Ruddys, of the Jaden Nelsons, of the Noble Akellos. I mean, Ralph Priso, is maybe the best player this academy's produced. And he's done for the season. So it's time to put a rating, a letter grade on these guys. And if they aren't ready for prime time, then we move them. Because it does us. I mean, we've already spilled all the ink we're ever going to spill on Manchester United's looking at Shaquille Marshall-Ruddy. I mean, are they going to take him, or are we stuck with him? We need to figure out what this is all about. But I want to circle back, because here's my feeling. I'm not a professional athlete, obviously, but we are in a situation where we have a bunch of elite professional athletes that are looking at the twilights of their careers, and that can't be easy mentally. When you stack that against, when you add that with the pressures of COVID and all of this stuff, and then this absolutely garbage season, I mean, what do we expect? I think the front office is trying to do whatever they can, giving Javi about as much responsibility as they can without naming him the new head coach, so he has a bit more gravitas in that locker room. But he's not a mind reader, and it's not group therapy. You've got a lot of body proud, heavens to Betsy. A professional athlete is a very myopic view, right? It's like maximize my potential until I hit that brick wall of age, right? Nobody wants to stop playing soccer. Their bodies just can't do it anymore. And so many of our roster right now, unfortunately, Father Time bit our roster all at the exact same time. And they're dealing with it. And you're seeing it manifest on the pitch. You're seeing it manifest in the results. You're seeing it manifest in their body language. What do we do? I mean, look, there are so many people that are like, we knew this was coming. And we had an inkling it was coming. But hindsight is always 20/20. And nobody predicted that everybody would get old at the exact same time. Nobody predicted that there would be a global pandemic that would contribute to the ennui at the club. Nobody predicted there would be such a disconnect with our number 10 from Santos. Nobody predicted that Oz would be playing 20% of the games of the
Jeff,
season. Right?
Here's one thing that a lot of people did predict, and I think we predicted this as well, is TFC's lack of depth at center back that was never addressed this season. I think that was something that we talked about quite often. I think it's something the fan base has talked about quite often. It's really even dating back to last season, but nothing was really done to address that. And I'll go to a question that Javier Perez was asked at this press conference after the last game. Can you legitimately compete with the center back group that you've got right now? Great question by Michael Leach. And his answer, which is very telling, it was, when we're all on the team, I think we can. So essentially what that says, unless Chris Mavinga is on the pitch, TFC cannot compete at center back. Right? And that's something we've been screaming. This team Omar Gonzalez is no longer a number one center back, which he's made out to be.
He's dropped off the cliff since 2019. 2019 was his last.
I mean, Omar and Chris, both of them together, they can get by. I mean, they have good chemistry. Omar Gonzalez does have good games now and then, but he has been exposed far too often this season.
Far too often.
But behind them, that depth is a joke.
A converted midfielder who's not ready for prime time, and Luke Singh. Zavs, who despite his great contract is good for at least one Camacho brain fart a game.
Like Zav should be a fourth center back option. Like they're missing they're missing that third center back.
And we hear it all the time. What about Rocco Romeo? What about Julian Dunn? People have watched these guys in training and they're not getting minutes. So that should be the only answer that you need. I mean, we can take issue with who's watching him training, but the fact that they're not getting minutes and we have this need for center backs is pretty solid vouch that they're not good enough.
What I will say is like Julian Dunn's been dealing with a lot of injuries this season, so I think it's unfair to say that about Julian Dunn. Rocco Romeo, and clearly he's needed some time. On loan somewhere, he needed to get minutes. That wasn't MLS. I don't think he was ready for that. I've been saying that for quite some time right now. And Luke Singh, who's been, touted as better than both of those guys, we saw what happened to Luke Singh when he's put
Yikes.
into a situation like he's been put in.
Yikes.
And that's part of the
Yep.
problem, though, Jeff,
Mhm.
is you look at the performances of Luke Singh, even Noble Okello, most recently against Inter Miami. You put those guys in that type of environment, that's going to do more harm than good for them. Like, this team right now is so dysfunctional. You throw a couple youngsters into that mix, there goes their confidence. It's not always positive that comes out of playing the young guns. You got to play them in the right environment, something Javier Perez has
Kristen-
talked about. So we
Kristen
got to
said
be
the same
cautious when we
thing.
say that.
Well, Kristen said the same thing. Kristen Knowles, guest host on the Tunnel Club, and my counter is this: when is there, like, we're looking for a perfect time to play these guys? If they want to be professional soccer players, they need to be able to play in adverse situations as much as positive situations. I hear what you're saying. I 100% hear what you're saying. But right now we have two reasons to play them. One, we don't have anybody else, and two, we need to see what they're all about. So, I mean, when is it? I would say putting them on when we're up 5-0 isn't perfect either, because they're not really getting game experience. They're sort of pylons out there just protecting the lead. So while I agree with you that, you want to coddle these guys, time doesn't stop. So if they're not getting minutes and they're marinating in their own juices on the bench or in the academy or for TFC2, how are, at the end of we may be damaging them just the same, right? By not playing them. So play them. You know what I mean?
I hear you, Jeff. I hear you.
Yeah, I think for me, I guess the overarching goal for the second half of the season now, or whatever is remaining, just has to be.
Well, how many games are remaining? 13 games?
That's a good point.
Total?
Yeah. So I guess, yeah.
Okay.
It has to be just finding an identity again. Like, we know Chris Armas tried to build one at the start of the season. It obviously didn't work out with the players he had or anything like that. But this team's been lacking any sort of identity, be that tactical or structural, or even just, the confidence they have when they bring on the pitch. And so you pick something, even be it tactical or something you think will work with this group, and you stick to it, and you see who works in that system. You try different options, that sort of thing. I think that's what you have to do, instead of, they've been in win now mode, which obviously was what Javi should have done starting his reign, because there was still time, and at that point there was still opportunity to get something out of it. But now that it looks like they're done, I mean, yeah, just try
Stick a
some
fork
things,
in them.
and just see what you can get out and build towards next season now, because again, you still have 13 MLS games. Why waste those when you have an opportunity to really see what you have in this group?
Here's my question, Mitch. Do we do that? Does that make sense with Javi in an interim role that probably won't carry over into next season to try and find an identity? Because it leaves with him.
That's another good question, Jeff. Is, does Javier Perez now potentially still have this job next season, or are we having real conversations about who's next?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I'd be surprised as well.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You need to, I mean, because, talking about spoiling players, we're spoiling this intern manager right now, right? Like, he is basically a placeholder. We've given him about as much responsibility in the locker room as we can without giving him the job officially. We're not going to do that because, like Will Dunn said so far up on the chat, and it's a lot of people saying this, not just us. These players should be playing for their jobs right now. There's a lot of flotsam that we need to clear out in terms of bad contracts, in terms of the roster. Let's put it this way. I don't think Josie's back next year. And how do you find an identity when you're platooning your number 9 position? Do you know what I mean? Can you? I don't think that's even possible. So what, realistically, what is the goal? It's not winning games. It's not making a push to the playoffs. As much as fans are going to protest, it has to be. Oh, I don't even know anymore, guys. I don't even know it because if you're playing young kids with no identity, then Mike's absolutely right. You're putting them out there to fail. You're not putting them in a position to succeed. They have no structure to play off of. You're going to frustrate our DPs. You're going to frustrate our young guns. It's going to be disjointed mess out there with a coach that has no responsibility and no real power to fix it, right? So what do we do? Do we forfeit the rest of the season and then
See, like Jeff,
you
I
know?
know you're going in circles right now, but that's literally the case that is
Yeah.
Toronto FC. Is
Yeah,
that there's no one answer to this, fix all solution. Here's again the biggest issues for me right now, just quickly on this TFC roster. I said the same thing last week. Is the fact designated player number 9 is not a designated player number 9. We can get into that more shortly.
Mhm.
Center back Omar Gonzalez is no longer that number 1
He's
B
not the
center
guy,
back.
yeah.
He's getting paid like a number 1 center back, so that's why I'm keep referring to him as a number 1 center back. So he's no longer that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that right winger spot's still a question mark for me. So those 3 areas right
And,
now are probably the biggest areas of concern for TFC. I don't know if you guys want to throw anything else into that mix.
My area of concern is this. If we buy out Josie in the offseason, that's our buyout. Welcome back, Erickson Gallardo. We're not solving that right winger problem anytime soon.
I think that's a less of a concern. Like,
Yeah, he doesn't
He's
take
still
up that much of the
he's still
salary budget.
300K off our budget. He's still
that's
300
not
plus
that
off our budget.
much.
No, it's not millions. Well, actually, it's not that much less than Josmer. I mean, DP's take 550,000 off your
spot
cap, and then
alone. The spot alone is more significant than anything that Erickson Gallardo takes up.
right. But then we're not buying out Omar. We're not buying out.
Omar's contract might be up at the end of the season.
Might be. I'm just saying, if we blow our buyout on Josie, that doesn't eliminate a whole bunch of crappy contracts that are on the books, right? So that's my worry. Is that even if we wanted to tear it all down, we can't because of the draconian MLS roster rules. We can't.
I
and
mean,
we're still going to be.
There are ways. There are ways.
Yeah, I mean, if we're prepared to pay some fines,
handcuffed right now, like you're making it out to be. Like that's
No,
not the case at all.
No, but it is a concern of mine that by playing
perhaps.
Yeah.
And there's no way either of us can sit here and confidently say this is the case or this isn't the case because of the lack of transparency in MLS, right?
Absolutely not.
So, and we're arguing hypotheticals there, but the reality is I think we can all agree that TFC do need to make some big changes this offseason. And Mitch, you wanna tee us up for some Josie Altador, Ralph Brizo talk?
Sounds good. What a great trailer this has been for the rest of TFC's season. But
join us.
But yeah, it doesn't get any better. Double injury announcement this week. Ralph Brizo out for the season with a right ankle injury. Initially, it didn't sound too bad based on what the club was saying, but clearly, had to undergo surgery. Joins Ayo Akinola on the season-ending injury list. Obviously, a frustrating way to pick up that injury as well.
Unbelievable.
It was a play that was clearly offside. But, we talked about players that we were hoping to get run out in the second year, and Ralph was probably the top of that list. So that's really unfortunate. And then, obviously, the other injury news, which is designated player Josie Altador, has undergone successful surgery on his right leg, another on his list of frustrating setbacks for Toronto FC. And, we've asked this a bunch of times, but is it the end for Josie? Obviously, like Jeff said earlier, the athlete mindset is different, but we've had this many injuries and this many setbacks. Like, it's got to get tough at some point to even want to return to the field, unfortunately. And, certainly if you're Toronto FC, I'm still glad he came back. And, the ending, we still have that moment at BMO Field where he scored that header. And that was an incredible moment. And it's obviously way better of an ending than him being exiled from the club for a coach that, obviously didn't work out anyway.
Yep.
But I think at this point, you have to find a way to move him because there's, it's over. It's over at this point. And it really sucks, but it's over.
It sucks. Time wins. Time wins 100%. Time will always beat you. I don't fault his attitude. I have no idea what that feels like, to go. How long has football been his life? Since before puberty. Can you imagine?
He was a Red Bull player.
Exactly.
Or something.
He is not the person that is going to say it's over. He is, he's going to play until his legs break on the pitch. The problem is it can't be for us. Not anymore. And I don't fault him for wanting to get paid. We gave him that deal. He deserves that money. We didn't have to offer him that deal. We did. I would have done it 10 times out of 10. Hindsight is 2020. I still would have done it if it had been my decision. Pay the man, thank him for his service, get him off the books. You know, it is what it is. But we are not in a position to wait on Josie Altador to play.
So
his
let me put it
Mhm.
this way: can TFC compete next season with Josie Altador as a designated player on this roster?
No, we can't unless he builds a time machine, or goes bionic, or clones himself with new hamstrings. Right? Like I mean, unfortunately, we have a certain measure of history here to go against, and it's not a good. It was a risky bet in 2019. It's an asininely insane bet in 2021, and we can't
Cool.
make that.
So let's paint out the scenarios for people.
Mhm.
So essentially, Josie Altador comes back as a designated player for TFC next season, which would be probably not ideal. Next, another option is, if there's a club out there that is attracted by the name Josie Altador, you never know what his ambitions are.
Mm-hmm.
TFC somehow find a way to move Josie Altador, get him off his books. The third option, and as you pointed out earlier on the show, Jeff, teams are permitted one buyout in the offseason, including a designated player, that if you buy a player out, it does not count against your salary budget. Is MLSC then willing to bite the bullet on the remaining 3.5, let's say, $1 million on Josie's contract? It could be backloaded or front loaded, so maybe it's like $2.5 million on Josie Altador's contract. Invest more money into this club during, or at least coming off the heels of a pandemic, and then in turn spending more money to buy their designated player. That's essentially the options that we're looking at. I mean, they've that could be the highest spending team in Major League Soccer this year during a pandemic. So I mean, yeah, you say they better be. I mean, at a certain point, like if you're throwing money into a product that has no, I don't know, no.
I didn't want to talk about the elephant in the room, but if we are accusing the team of throwing money at Shiny, they've thrown $25 million over 4 years at Shiny. So they can't now come back and say, well, $3 million to get rid of this albatross around our neck is just a bridge too far, right? They
It's
went
not just the $3 million. It's just you got to invest that further into another designated player as well. Then, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah,
double
absolutely.
the investment at least.
I mean, that's
Not
the way the
including
cookie
transfer
crumbles.
fee.
If you want it, we're not sitting at the kids' table here, right? Like, they. Yeah.
I mean, again, it's not up to us. Yes, that's what we want, of course. Like no one's debating. That's definitely what we want. But at the end of the day, like this is a business. MLS clubs are a business, and TFC. I don't know, man. Like it's up to MLSC and their
Up to
board. Maybe they
MLSC.
just say, okay, you're stuck with Josie Altador. Like you guys have a
Well, they've
marketable
been
player that the fan
sort
base
of.
loves, and maybe that's what you got to roll with and find a way. Maybe that's they play hardball. Who knows?
I think they've been roundabout doing that for 2 years, and I think that at this point, nobody can say that with a straight face. He's a marketable player, maybe. The fans love him, certainly.
He's definitely a marketable player. Like in Toronto, at least. Like as you said, the fan base loves him. He can tweet out a smiley face and he'll get a bunch of interactions from it. You know what I mean? And when you go to BMO Field, which player gets a loudest ovation? It's Josie Altador, because the fan base loves him. So I mean, in a way, yes, he's absolutely a marketable player. So maybe MLSC again plays hardball. Again, not what we want, Jeff. I agree with you. That's not ideal. But maybe that's just the way MLS is thinking from a business perspective. Who knows?
Well, then it's going to be a fun second year of doing this weekly show, guys. We're going to have to come up with with songs to sing and stuff like that, Yeah.
Well, we all know that unfortunately the Raptors and Leafs haven't been like the license to print money that they've been in the past anyway because of this pandemic. So we know MLSE as much as they can are hurting a little bit. So that'll definitely be an interesting situation to watch, certainly going forward, as they decide what to do with, like we said, a legend for the club. And obviously, speaking of legends for the club, there's another one who's a free agent right now, Sebastian Giovinco, it was announced this past week, Al Hilal have released him, or I guess he's leaving the club
mutual
by mutual
consent.
termination.
Mhm.
There's, of course, been plenty of rumors from Seba coming back to MLS, linking him to Greg Vanney and LA Galaxy, more recently linking him to Tim Bezbachenko and the Columbus Crew. I mean, look, this makes no sense roster-wise, salary cap-wise, maybe even team-wise. Bring him back.
I don't care. Yeah, bring him back.
Bring him back. Just
Bring him
do
back.
it.
Wheel
Just
him
do the
out.
right
Wheel him
thing.
out for 2 free kicks. Retires as a Red. We're happy. I mean, yeah, like unveil the statue at the same time as you unveil Seba, and he can like stand next to a statue like Cristiano Ronaldo did. Hopefully, it's better than his statue. But
it could be a good way. I mean, if anything, it's just a PR move, right? It could be a good way, ease off what this.
I mean, it's a terrible
season
segue
has been.
because we're like, is MLSE going to buy out this like hulking injured striker? No, they're going to play hardball, but they are going to get back at the top of the allocation order and trade up and bring back a guy that can maybe not walk anymore, that just got bought out of his club, and give him, a couple $1 million basically. So it's funny how quickly the pendulum shifts. I think, if MLSE is even entertaining the idea of trotting out Seba for a victory lap, then we won't see Josie next year. They can't do the both at the same time. I mean, we're not, but that's the thing. Build a winning team with an interim coach. We're in limbo right now, in a way that we haven't been since the bad years. We're in TFC limbo right now. We do not have a coach in a position to build a team. He's not that guy. He's not there to build a team. He's there to work with these pieces and at one point make a playoff push. That's over now. Right now we're just waiting. We're basically waiting until we get to go play golf. So,
Yeah. I mean, usually we're maybe more logical than this on the show. And again, logically, it doesn't make any sense, but I want
No
a reason
sense
to watch
whatsoever.
these last 13 games of the season. Sebastian Giovinco would be a reason to watch those last 13
I'm gonna be there. I found out there's a cider bar in section 117 that I'm desperate to try. They give you your cider and they'll give you a glass with some ice in it. Boom. That's 2 games at least that they've bought where the cider is going to be the thing. And it doesn't even matter what's happening on the pitch. I'll be like, this cider is amazing. And, Alicia, my wife, will be like, well, we could have gone anywhere else and gotten it for a third of the price. And I'll be like, cider. But, it is what it is. Anyway, you probably had smarter things to say than I just did. So somebody please start talking.
It's okay. Yeah, let's move on, Mitch. Let's kind of wrap this up kind of quickly. I do have to run at 1:30, so let's try and get through some of our last stuff.
I don't think we're going to get to 1:30, but
my building didn't start shaking, so
that's true. Yeah, no construction. Yeah.
Here we go.
There is at least one Toronto FC game that I am looking forward to for the rest of the year, and that is their first ever meeting with York United, which is now confirmed in the Canadian Championship quarterfinals. That'll be played on September 22nd at BMO Field. Obviously the first 2 times these clubs have met, and York coming in hot, 5-0 win over the League One Ontario champions Masters. Again, this is going to be an exciting game, and like Jeff said last week, obviously Toronto FC the favorites going into this, but there's never been a better time, I don't think, to pick off Toronto FC. And York has a lot of players with a lot to prove to Toronto FC based on being overlooked in the past, and they in general have a lot of solid talent, so it's gonna be a fun match.
What percentage do you guys give York of beating TFC?
Still like 20.
You think? I would go. Yeah. I would go 30-70.
Okay, I think that's I don't know. I think that's a little high. I think there's other clubs within CanPL that I would give, if it's like Pacific or even Cavalry, like I give them a better chance. I don't think York's even a particularly solid Canadian Premier League side, but
no,
it depends who Toronto FC plays as well in that game.
I give it like a 5% chance, man. Yeah, and like you said, it depends on who TFC plays in that match. I just think the caliber is there's a big gap between the Canadian Premier League and Major League Soccer. Again, let's see who TFC rolls out for that match, and that's an interesting question as well. Like, how seriously are TFC going to take this one? right?
They
Is this
better
a time
take it
to?
seriously. I mean, that's the only thing we've got
I mean,
left in this season.
you could take
so-
you could accomplish both, right? You could if you're confident in your that gap is really significant, then you could roll out a combination of youngsters and mix in a few veterans here and there. Of course, they have to hit that threshold, right, of minimum Canadian players in the match. Is it,
Yeah,
3 still?
3. So yeah,
Mhm.
Oso, Richie are like general starters, and then someone else has to factor in at least.
Yeah,
at
I mean,
minimum.
like a Jacob Schaffelberg, Noble Kello.
I was
mean,
just about to say the same thing. Shaft all the way.
Chef's been that Canadian Championship guy, eh?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Luke
Yeah.
Singh could also potentially play a factor in that match. Like, who knows? Who knows the way that TFC do line up? I mean, again, it's a good opportunity to get a look. I think that game's a great opportunity to get a look at the youngsters, and perhaps from that game, they go on and they continue to roll out the youngsters. But yeah,
Yep.
I don't see York beating TFC. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I highly doubt it.
I just flashed to York holding themselves aloft and having sellies at the end of the and on our field. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that would be a low point of the season, certainly for Toronto FC. No offense, obviously, to York, but like Jeff said, I mean, we talked last week about this for the Forge whenever they play the 2020 championship game, and how that might not be the best Toronto FC side. But I'm with Jeff on this one. Like, you're out of the playoffs at this point. This is one thing you can have to build on this season, is winning a Canadian championship, setting yourself up with a CONCACAF berth for next season.
absolutely.
This should be what you're playing for at this point.
Helps
So
And,
do you roll out
recruitment
your
too.
best 11 there, Mitch, against York?
again, I do think you make some allowances to add a couple of Canadian players, but I'd put Pozuelo on the field. I think Soteldo's on the field, as many of those top guys as you can, and then sure, mix in a couple of young Canadians. But again, this is the most important game I think they're going to play at this point for the rest of the season. So,
I mean,
why
it
not?
would have a knock-on effect on recruitment. I mean, it's not UEFA Champions League, but it is CONCACAF. So, considering that we are going to have to sign some players, I do think it matters in a big way.
I'd be surprised
come back for
if both of those guys
for his
start that
revenge in
game.
CONCACAF.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I'd be surprised if both Soteldo and Pozuelo start that game against York. Maybe those are guys who come off the bench. I think that drop off is a bit too big, and like they have the ability to roll out some young guys with some an opportunity to really take advantage and get them some meaningful minutes against a team that's, like you said, is entering this game confident. And if they make up ground in the Canadian Premier League as well, who knows what'll happen.
Sorry,
We lost you for a second, buddy.
Yeah.
I thought the construction had started, but no, we're still good.
No, I zigged when I should have zagged. I put my finger on the wrong button. That was all.
Well, good, yeah. Well, quickly before we end, I just want to wrap up, give you a quick Canadian Championship roundup of what's been going on this past week. Halifax, as we've alluded to a lot of these during the show, but Halifax beating Blainville 2-1 to advance. Valor, they beat Atletico Ottawa 3-2 with a goal from one of the young stars we've been talking about, Sean Rea. Also, Austin Ricci, who's been great this season, a brace for Valor. All eyes, of course, now on the Thursday meeting between Pacific and the Vancouver Whitecaps. Pacific offering to exchange any Whitecaps
looking forward to
gear.
That was so cold. I love it.
Of charge.
But there's no stipulations. Like, can people bring let's put it this way. Can people bring like a pretty well loved, 2011 Whitecaps replica kit and exchange it for like a brand new Pacific authentic kit? Because these are questions that the kit nerds need to know.
There should have been fine print
for
me. What's the
does it have to be brand new in a bag? Like, do you have to buy a Caps kit and then to get a new Caps kit?
These are the important questions, man.
Yeah, this is the stuff that I want answered. I'm gonna Woodward and Bernstein it. I'll find out for next week, guys.
Perfect. Well, anyway, the winner of that game will, of course, play against Cavalry, which could potentially be a rematch of the Whitecaps Cavalry match that was I think the high point of the 2019 champions.
It was
or Canadian Championship. So as previously mentioned, now just to get us to where we are now in the quarterfinals, Toronto FC will play York, Forge will meet Valor, HFX will take on CF Montreal, and of course potentially that Cavalry Whitecaps or Cavalry Pacific matchup. Just quickly, guys, which of those ones are you looking forward to? What do you want to see in those quarterfinals? Start with you, Mike.
Well, I mean, we talked about TFC York, which is probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. And then, as you mentioned there, like it's gotta be Cavalry and potentially the Vancouver Whitecaps if they can get by Pacific. I mean, it makes for such an interesting affair. Vancouver's actually playing pretty well right now in Major League Soccer, and they're a team that's in form. So if they can keep that going until the end of September there, and then we know how good Cavalry is. Those will be two of the premier sides in Canada going head to head, and that should make for the interesting affair. So that's probably my matchup to watch. How about you, Jeff?
I actually think Pacific might beat the Caps. If
it's possible.
Honest.
It's
which
I think Pacific
for a great one.
Yeah, I think Pacific are in better form than Cavalry. I don't know if they have a better roster. I don't think they do. Cavs are very, very deep, and defensively they're scary. But Pacific are a hell of a side, and on any day, I think they can beat the Caps. The Caps are playing well, but they haven't gelled yet, which is a symptom of MDS squads. There is a bit of a runway to this, so if they can find that kind of unity, I don't think Pacific. I mean, again, there is such a difference in level, but I wouldn't. I mean, I'm excited for that Pacific Caps game.
Absolutely,
I'm not excited for the York TFC game, unlike you guys.
Fair enough.
Not at all.
New Whitecap Ryan Gold, by the way, what a player! Our own Waking the Red Zone Ryan Lindsay has been trying to find out a way if he can marry this guy so that he can become eligible for Canada.
get him his green card. Yeah, he was actually like properly asking. I think he called his MP or something. But because
as Ryan said, if FIFA believes in anything, it's love, which was a great line from him. We're trying to make this guy eligible for Canada, but certainly a player you should be watching if obviously you're looking for some other MLS action to catch up on, but
any other MLS action,
any and all other MLS action. Let's end the show there. Obviously great to hear from Tristan D'Amours about CF Montreal and all the great things they're doing ahead of this week's clash. Thanks to Kevin, Sophia, and Edwin for all the work they do making the show possible, and congrats on them to the move over to the Parlay, which of course make plenty of good content. You can see some familiar faces over there as well, potentially. Thank you all so much for listening and interacting. Always means the world to us. On behalf of Michael Singh and Jeffrey P. Nesker, I'm Mitchell Tierney. Until next Tuesday.
Cheers.